I've been thinking a lot about the 49ers since I pulled over in the Willamette Valley on Saturday during a drive and did a quick little video and reading some of the comments, which I'll get to as well. And whether it's the ongoing or soon to be started Brock Purdy negotiations, the Debo Samuel trade, the willingness to trade Brandon Aiyuk, is, as Mayoko put it, he said they're not interested in trading Aiyuk, but they're willing, they're open to trading him. As I was thinking about all of that stuff, and it's not the entire puzzle, but what it adds up to me is a team that's more in build mode than maintain mode. Now, build mode doesn't mean not trying to win. I think they're willing to take some chances, but they're not going to do it at the risk of the financial freedom now that they're giving themselves into the next couple of years. Some of that is to pay Brock Purdy, there's no doubt. But just remember, when the Brock Purdy deal gets announced, the Debo trade, the Ayuk situation, that the one thing they've always done a pretty good job is given themselves kind of, outs every couple of years. And I think we're seeing that with Ayuk. I don't think he's going to get traded, but we're seeing that they have given themselves the option to do it if they get to a point where they find a deal that is worth it to them. But they're going to build means push to smartly upgrade the roster while maintaining financial flexibility. And I think even the Purdy contract's going to have that. Now, not in year 2. I think that's where we'll see a lot of the money. I don't think we'll see a lot of the money in year 1, not in year 2, but year 3, year 4, year 5. There was a comment earlier in the week, or a couple comments from Mike Florio and Chris Sims. They're doing their podcast. And Sims said, I hope they don't overpay him. And I would be in that low 40s range with Purdy. My main thing would be, go ahead and tell me who else out here in football is going to pay you more than that. Florio then says he's a middle of the pack starter, middle of the pack meat and potatoes guy who can get it done. I think the challenging thing in the way we think about Purdy is that he has these skills of subtlety. They're skills that a lot of other people don't have, but they're not skills that allow you to be the kind of quarterback that just puts a team on your back and carries. I think he can take a good roster higher than a middle of the pack quarterback can take a roster. I don't think Florio is right about that. But he needs skilled teammates to do it. But what he can do that is help those skilled teammates reach their full potential. I think he would struggle to take an average roster along with him to greatness because he thrives on maximizing existent talent rather than creating opportunities from nothing. His strengths are precision, timing, decision-making within and outside of structure, the ability to make quick decisions within structure. It's not jaw-dropping athleticism, although we know that he is athletic, or the arm talent that compensates for deficiencies in other places on the team. So, take that how you will. That's not even a comment about how much he should get paid. It is a comment about where he can take a team if it's good enough. I get asked, one of the questions I get asked the most from just like people, friends, whoever, is, can this guy win a Super Bowl? And I say yes. I saw him play well enough to win a Super Bowl and then not win it with a couple of critical mistakes that, his coach needs to help him with too. An offensive line mistake, a bad everything. Coach got beat on third down. The second time, offensive line made a mistake the first time, which is also on the coach. But the point is, yes, I think he's capable. Yes, you've got to put a talented roster around him. He can be worth a certain amount of money on the right team. And I think what we're seeing is a franchise trying to put a level of talent around him that would then get the most out of his money. But I don't get, at this point in early March, concerned about how the Purdy contract situation will play out, because I think what we're seeing, the Debo trade and now the Aiyuk situation, whatever it is, will he or won't he be on the team, is a team that's kind of waiting to put all their dominoes in place, all their ducks in a row, line up all their little dominoes before the final domino, which is the Purdy contract. And it's not about how much are we going to pay him, although that is still a yet to be determined negotiation. I think it's about how do we structure where the money hits us based on other contracts that we do. When the framework around him is average, his ceiling is limited because of the subtlety of his skills. He's not going to overpower defenses with physical traits or single-handedly elevate ordinary receivers because he makes these impossible throws. Oh, you don't get separation, no problem. I'm going to laser it to your back shoulder. But his success is symbiotic with the talent and with Shanahan. And he can take the subtle things that he can do the subtle things that most guys can't do to take you from average or above average to really good. And I still think he's that guy. And, I think as time went on, like Debo was a guy who was overpowering, but he had this subtlety to him that was really useful on a really good team, but not as useful on an average team. Although he did carry the team once. I actually got this. I got a couple comments I want to read, but I got this email from Chris at Hey Guy. You can email guy at heyguy.co. He says, does Debo going for a 5th round pick to Washington show how much the Cowboys overvalued Lance, or do the Commanders undervalue Debo? No. If you compare anything to the Trey Lance trade, the only conclusion, no matter what you're comparing, is that the Cowboys did a crazy thing. I don't think the Commanders see value. They're not paying nothing. That's part of it. But they see value. I think he has a chance to help them for sure, because they've got other guys, because he's not asked maybe to do as much, because his offensive coordinator is creative and he's got a skilled quarterback and other playmakers around him. So I think he's got a good chance to look good. But if you're ever saying what's crazier, this thing or a 4th round pick for Trey Lance when the Cowboys did it, the answer is going to always be a 4th round pick for Trey Lance. I think the Aiyuk situation is so up in the air because he can't just walk in during OTAs and solve it by acting like a leader and by practicing really hard and by looking ready to roll, because he's hurt. And if he has a desire, I don't know if he does, but if he has a desire to ease what is a clear, unaddressed, or at least unsolved tension between himself and the organization, he has to wait to do. We all have to wait for him to do it. So, Rap Sheet, Ian Rappaport says Saturday they're open to trading him after John Lynch didn't shoot it down on Wednesday, was open to it. And I don't think we shouldn't be surprised about it, right? I mean, they were willing to trade Brandon Aiyuk last year before they'd paid him and when he was healthy. Now they've paid him a lot of money, have not gotten their money's worth yet. They've paid him a lot of money and he's hurt. So yes, if they're willing to trade him healthy, they're definitely willing to trade him hurt. The question is, are you going to get anything for him? And I maintain, I said this in my kind of instant reaction on Saturday on YouTube. I still maintain, even if you're not getting, even if you overpaid a little, if you get something close to 2023 Brandon Aiyuk, when we all take this with a grain of salt. PFF's number 2 rated receiver. If you just get something close to that, even if it's not dollar for production for dollar 100% of what you pay, it's still pretty useful for a team without anything near a proven number 1 or number 2. We love Juwan Jennings. He's in his prime now. That's good news. Probably going to get some more money. George Kittle going to get some more money, extending his prime. But the odds that you can get 85% of what you had the last year you had a healthy Brandon Aiyuk are not great. Now, if somebody says to you, hey, you know what? We're willing. We're going to give you a we're going to give you a late 2nd round pick. You go, okay, fine. We will then create even more cap space for ourselves later. We're going to save a lot of money and not deal with this anymore. And then I understand it. But I still think it creates another problem where then you have to find the replacement for the production. He wasn't good last year coming off of the contract negotiation. Am I optimistic when he's healthy he'll be better than he was at the beginning of 24? Actually am. And am I optimistic the relationship is salvageable? I mean, they think it is because they paid him. I think what's really frustrating is that it didn't, Debo got paid and then everything got fine. Bosa got paid and then everything was fine. Aiyuk, even before the injury, got paid. Everything was not fine. And I think that's probably really frustrating to them. They're sitting there going like, if I could quote a recent news story, it'd be nice to hear you say thank you. That's how it felt. That's how it really felt. So my issue is not that if they traded him, they'd be admitting they made a bad call or that you won't even get full compensation for him because he's hurt. My issue is replacing what I still think can be useful production. And one of the storylines that seems to be developing is, well, Jacob Cowing's going to take a step forward. The Niners are optimistic about Jacob Cowing. I was optimistic about Jacob Cowing last year because before the season, in a press conference, I said to Kyle Shanahan, "Hey, how about Jacob Cowing?" And he said, young receivers take time. And, we saw him flash a little bit in the preseason. The kickoff return, the return game, the punt return game, was what it was. But even if you're optimistic, I still think you have to have proven production on a team that aspires to win a championship like this one does. So he flashed. I'm realistically optimistic. I'm not optimistic. I'm certainly not pessimistic, but that he can't be, he is not the replacement for making it work with Brandon Aiyuk. And so, I talked about that in ways on Saturday, and I want to share this comment on YouTube from Brandon, who quoted me. He said, because I said, players get mad, the whole thing gets a little pissy, end quote. And then Brandon says, only if the player is an immature and petulant child. Grown men understand the negotiation process, what's what, and that it's a business, not personal. And I said, well, you can either view it how you want to view it, right? Which is, I agree with the point that like, that's how it should be. That's how professional business is done. But I said, you can either view it how you want to do it or how it is, meaning in the NFL when it comes to player or any sport when it comes to player negotiation, because you are simultaneously saying, I like you, and also here's why you're not worth as much as you think you're worth. Brandon since replied, said, I'm an adult man. I have been through hundreds. I've been through hundreds of business negotiations throughout my career. Not once was anything personal. Business is business. And my reply was, that's great. And I'm not being flippant or whatever, sarcastic. You sound like an experienced pro, a reasonable person. You don't sound like an NFL wide receiver. My point on YouTube, and for those of you listening on the podcast, you didn't hear this point, but my point on YouTube was that the way Aiyuk handled the contract negotiation last year was bad. There were some people on the 49ers ultimately that did want to pay him. There were some people I'm sure that didn't. If all of those people were in a room together, I think they'd all agree it was bad. It was not good. But I think what you saw last year was a team acting in kind of maintain and desperation mode as opposed to what it feels like the vibe is this year, which is win, but build mode. Like let's do things. If it doesn't make financial sense, if there's a risk, we are not doing it. And, it's great to take the real business world. We always make all these real business world analogies with sports and go, well, this is how I run my business. When I get a government contract, I give them a number. We turn in a bid. They give me a number back. And this is how much it's going to cost for me to do all this concrete work, whatever. And it's business. But we've seen over and over again in sports, especially when you're telling somebody, you, the person, not your business, you, the person. Yeah, we want to pay you, but not like these other guys. Even though in theory that should stay unemotional, it consistently doesn't. And my point on Saturday was the Niners, I think, were blindsided by how quickly the Aiyuk thing changed. Because as John Lynch said, they thought they were in a good position to get him signed. And then it got weird and sour for whatever reason. Was it him? Was it the agent? Was it somebody? Whatever it was. And I do think even if you are acting as the organization professionally and doing things by the book in a business manner with the agent, all that stuff, when a player, it doesn't always happen, but when a player makes it more difficult the way that Aiyuk did last year, You can be disappointed. You can be mad. Absolutely, you have the right to be mad. You can be frustrated, all that stuff. But what you can't be is surprised. You can't be surprised. And so, especially when it's a player's first contract, which was the case in IU. It's another thing if you're dealing with Myles Garrett or you're dealing with an older player. But especially when it's, so to the thing here with Brandon, like, I'm an adult man. I've done hundreds of business negotiations. Well, Brandon Aiyuk's done none. He's done none business negotiations other than his rookie contract. So I think we do this a lot. I do. Like, I come at from, I've seen this happen a million times. Well, this person's been in it the first time. But the organization has seen it happen a million times. They've been through it many times. And I think part of your job, if you're going to sign a player to a contract, is to make sure that they are in the mental space and the physical condition to earn the contract. You're only hurting yourself if you don't help them earn that contract. So here we are, and like it is clearly on Aiyuk to ease the Niners' discomfort with the fact that they paid him. And he's got to convince some people in the organization. And if that is a pressure they've put on him, I'm okay with that. You get paid this much money. Like, I know I do a lot of college basketball cover, like calling games. Many of you know that. I'll be doing the Big Ten tournament this year, which I'm very excited about, in Indianapolis in a couple of weeks. Coming up on Tuesday night, huge game, Indiana, Oregon, FS1. I'll be there. And I've had multiple coaches. You talk to them and like, yeah, we do talk to players a little bit differently now. They're earning money. Like, hey guys, you got to earn the money you're getting paid. And so, I think if he's going to be on the team, which I think the odds are that he is, you got to hope that he responds to this well. But they are in it with him. They are in this thing together. It is not you versus him. It's not Niners versus Aiyuk anymore. That's what it was in the negotiation. Now you decided to pay him. Some of you might like it, some of you might not. But the only chance you have of getting your money's worth is by getting the most out of the guy. But it's weird. It is weird. It is weird right now. It's weird. And I hate to say this. I don't think it's any one of theirs the fault necessarily. But it doesn't matter how much they think it's his fault. He thinks it's their fault. Whatever. You're trying to win. You got to fix it. And I would say this too. Well, I'm about to say it. As it relates to Brock, I think it's going to be fine. But it's not Brock Shanahan. It's not Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan sitting down and negotiating. So it can get weird. It can get weird. If it gets weird, nobody should be shocked. But here we are in March. We've done this before. Like, be patient, be patient, be patient. The one thing we know about this organization, they are not volunteering big contracts in March unless it benefits them. And since they didn't make the playoffs, we didn't get to see Brock Purdy employ Florio's strategy of holding out before the first playoff game to make sure he gets paid. I thought that was going to work. Never happened. But anyway, by the way, back to the previous point, this is a very good disagreement from Brandon on YouTube, just in the sense that, like, he did act like a pro, like a professional business guy. Like, I like that kind of interaction. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. In fact, sometimes I need people to say, hey, there's something wrong with this. Like this photo of me that I'm putting on the screen from the stream I did on Saturday, from the Willamette Valley, halfway between Eugene and Portland on my drive, where I just had some barbecue, clearly had food in my teeth. Nobody said a thing about it. Nobody said a thing, which I guess on one hand, thanks for not making fun, but I saw this. I'm like, I'm surprised. Comment from this is a email I got. You can email me, guy@heyguy.co, from Amia. It says, hope you're doing well. Funny story. I got one of your hats as a gift from a buddy of mine who likes watching your show. You can go to heyguy.co, by the way, to buy the 262 hats in red, black. One of them, I think the black is either sold out or almost sold out. We got the white, we got the red. 262 hat, and then there's also the guy hat, which is great for golf. He said, I was wearing this hat, and this girl comes up to me and asks me what the area code 262 is supposed to be. And now, because of your hat and Brock's underdog spirit, I got myself a date for Sunday. That's today. Anyways, just wanted to write you because I'm sure this story can make for a ridiculous advertisement if you wish, and also because I just want to say thanks. I'd say 50-50. This is a true story. But if it is a true story, I'm happy. We could, obviously when there's a wedding, it's obvious what the party favor should be. The old 262 hat.